a couple of other folks, I can't remember the other ones, and it's called Difficult Conversations. And it's a really good book about how to have difficult conversations and confront people that are sort of the irregular people. It's a really good book. Have you all read Multipliers? I encourage every one of my managers to read Multipliers, written by Liz Wiseman.
Liz Wiseman?
Mm-hmm. W-I-S-E-M-A-N.
What's the basis of that?
So we, in the way we carry ourselves as leaders, we're either multipliers or we're diminishers. And we can become an accidental diminisher, but she gives us really clear guidelines on how to be a multiplier. I know Liz, and she's a great lady, and she actually has a new addition to the book coming out in the spring, where she's adding 2 more chapters and augmenting one of the chapters that's in there. Because she says that, she told me that they're a whole lot smarter than they were in 2009 when they did their research on what really makes a multiplier and what that person looks like and what they do. So she's got a couple of chapters that they're going to add in the new edition of multipliers. I was going to say difficult. Multipliers is really good, and it gives you, if you get the book, take the test in the back of the book first before you read the book. There's a test in the back of the book. Take the test first, then read the book. Now, when I do mentoring circles for area managers. I do 12 at a time, and all of my mentoring is face-to-face in those circles. Because I'm a media psychologist, I understand what our mediated existence does to our attention span and engagement. One of the things I get them to do is I make them read multipliers and take that test, because look, every one of us, if we're going to lead well, we have to figure out what in us has to change. As leaders, whenever you're trying to fix a problem on your team, the first place you have to look is in the mirror. Not who do I need to fix, but what do I need to fix in me? One of my very favorite leaders is fond of saying, when a leader gets better, everybody wins. And that's true. Every year I sit down between Christmas and New Year's, and I sit down and I get feedback from my team, and I figure out what it is in me that I've got to change. We teach executives how to give feedback. What we don't teach executives to do is how to get feedback, and that's far, far more important. Here's what we tend to do. We tend to only get feedback from people we like. If I like you, I'm going to listen to you. If I don't like you, I'm not going to listen to you. And so we throw the baby out with the bathwater, and when in fact, it's that feedback from that person that we necessarily didn't like that could be the most constructive advice we get. And as leaders, we have to learn to sort of filter out all the junk, right, and sit down and say, what do I need to own? What really applies to me here? But if you'll do that, if you'll set up good feedback mechanisms where people can give you feedback, and you start to change yourself, and all change is personal. You will not change professionally until you as the person decide to change. And here's what happens. Your brand is what people have come to expect when they interact with you. That's what your brand is. I don't care what you say your brand is. Your brand is what people experience when they interact with you. And what you have to ask yourself is, what is it that people are experiencing when they interact with me? And here's what we know. We live in a highly perceptual world. Now look, it's really important to understand. We see ourselves like this, and the problem is everybody else sees us like this. And as leaders, if we're not paying attention to that gap, we wake up one day and we're on an island, and we realize, hey, nobody's following. Because you know what? If nobody's following you, I don't care what your title is, you're not a leader. And it's because we never paid attention to the gap. We perceive ourselves this way, and the behavior research is real clear that we do not have access We do not have access to the cognitive processes to tell us what we do or why we do it. Research is real clear. We're highly inaccurate. And the only thing that gives us accuracy is this wonderful gift called feedback. It's the only thing that makes us more accurate. And the more feedback you get, the more accurate you get at seeing yourself as other people see you. Now look, that'll never completely overlap because we all have blind spots. I still have blind spots, right? But it's always inching closer and closer together because I want to see myself as accurately as I can as everybody else sees me, because now I know when I do certain things, what reaction I'm going to get, how it's going to impact people, how they're going to respond to it, right? But you know, it doesn't make, so look, I think this is a great example. See this picture up here? This picture? Now look, I can have you, each one of you, write a paragraph on the story in that picture. Right? And I promise you, there'd be 5 different stories. There'd be 7 different stories in this room if you just look and wrote the story of what's going down. Now, it doesn't make any one of you more right than anybody else, because we live our reality through our perceptions. Our perceptions become reality. Guess what? The people that are perceiving you, that's their reality. And so if you don't pay attention to what their reality looks like, you're going to miss the mark, and you miss your ability to really influence people. And as you pay attention to what their reality looks like and you change yourself to close that gap, you become far, far more powerful as a leader. I want to leave you with one other thing here. How am I doing on time? Am I okay, guys? Am I screwing things up?
You're fine.
I want to leave you with one other thing, and that is, and I'll open it up for questions. Look, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do across the organization is drive a higher level of engagement among people, right? Because engagement, we know that engagement, and Liz Wiseman's research bears this out, as does others, engagement translates directly into productivity. Now, here's what engagement isn't. Engagement is not job satisfaction. Don't ever mistake job satisfaction for engagement. The two are not the same. People can show up to work and nobody ever checks on them and asks them for things and make sure that they're meeting goals, and they love their jobs, right? They get nothing done and they get paid for it. They're highly satisfied with their jobs. So job satisfaction and engagement are not the same thing. Involvement and engagement are not the same thing. We oftentimes mistake motion for progress. You got people running here, running there. It's like an unchained dog in the middle of downtown Anchorage, right? They're running all over the place. There's a lot of motion, but there's no progress. That's not engagement. Do you know what unemployment costs us? Oh, before you answer that, here's what the research shows, that in fully engaged employees can be twice as productive as moderately disengaged to fully disengaged employees. Twice as productive. Now, engagement is not a static function. It's not like you flip a switch in the morning, I'm engaged, and flip it off at night. We all know, the research shows that engagement kind of comes and goes through the course of the day. It does for you, it does for me, it does for the people that work for you. Engagement comes and goes. The trick is to get the highest level of engagement in the work role just when you need it most. The guy that backs his truck into the light pole is probably sitting there with a Coke between his knees, unwrapping his sandwich, and he's engaged, but not in the work role, right? And so what you want is engagement just when you need it most. Now look, when you get engagement from your whole team, you get what we're all looking for, which is trust and collaboration. It's 2 words that you hear a lot around AT&T. But let me give you the frame to think about these, right? When you get engagement, full engagement, and the clinical definition of engagement is this. It's really simple. Engagement is people who show up and bring their best selves fully to the work role with energy and enthusiasm. That's what engagement is. That's the clinical definition of engagement. People who show up to the work role with energy and enthusiasm. They bring their best self to work, okay? Now, there are 4 conditions. There are actually more than that, but I've boiled it down to the 4 main conditions. I think in the research literature, and by the way, my dissertation was on engagement. So this is a subject I know very, very well. I've been through probably 50 or 60 research studies on engagement. I know this subject. My dissertation was on how to know if employees are engaged in the work role when they use enterprise social media. And mine was the first quantitative study, because there's a way to tell. There's 2 schools of thought. One is that employees use enterprise social media to be engaged in the work role, and there's another school of thought that says people use enterprise social media to disengage from the work role. And so I wanted to know, how can you tell? How can you tell the difference? And there's really a quantitative way to tell. I won't bore you with all the details, but look, here's the deal. When you get full engagement, you get trust and collaboration. Now, what is it about trust? Have you guys read Speed of Trust, Stephen M. R. Covey's book? What is it about trust? Trust is like a lubricant. Think of it as a lubricant in a machine, right? When trust is high, the lubricant's high. Friction is low, right? When trust is high, speed is high. I think Stephen Covey calls it a tax. When trust is high, tax is low. When trust is low, tax is high. Friction is high, speed is low. So when you're trying to move an organization, you first have to build trust before you can get collaboration. Once you build trust, speed starts to happen and the speed of collaboration picks up. But think of trust as sort of like the lubricant in an organization. Now, there are 4 what we call antecedent conditions, or 4 preconditions that you as leaders have to pay attention to, because this determines whether or not you can build trust and whether or not that trust will speed up collaboration. And these are the 4 conditions. You have control over them. The first is what we call, there's meaning, and that is this. Meaning is nothing more than you have attached something that's meaningful to the person to something that's meaningful in the job. So, for instance, if we have a technician that's really see, these are the intrinsic or internal motivators, right? If we have a technician that's really internally motivated by hosting a great customer experience, they love it when a customer smiles. I mean, technicians love coming to my house in Inverness because my wife makes sure that she force feeds them lunch, she gives them coffee, she makes cookies. I mean, she treats them well, right? They love that. And you know, when a technician, some technicians, they're just really driven by that customer smile and you know, knowing that they left that customer. Guess what? Is that meaningful for the work we're trying to do? Yeah, you bet. You bet. So figure out how to call that out. Maybe you make that person like a subject matter expert. Maybe you give them the ability to be a teacher or be an instructor or to model something, right? But you call it out so that you align what they're passionate about with meaning in their lives and in the job. We got some technicians that just love solving thorny problems. Right? They just love it. You give them the problem, they want the toughest problems because they just like diving into it and fixing them, right? Well, I'm not going to put somebody else, we try not to put somebody else on those jobs that's really not lit up by that. If we can help it, we'll try to get the person that we can to go solve that problem, because they'll teach the rest of everybody else. So that's the first one. Look for alignment of meaning. These are the intrinsic motivators. The second is what we call voice. Now look, there's a couple of different ways that people perceive voice. That is, some people perceive that they use their voice when they get to voice an opinion, right? Now, it's really important as leaders that we not shut anybody down, because voicing it, it's not that you have to follow up on their opinion, right? But they've got to feel like they can voice their opinion, at least give their opinion. Now, if they're the person that's trying to draw attention to themselves, I'll give you the tools in a minute to show how to shut that